Strade Bianche, what a race it was. I'm making this video today unedited and freshly off seeing what was a magnificent race with live streams not looking good, not being able to do them in the next 90 days, I believe, so 3 months. So I'm going to start a little series after most of these main biggest races where you can draw some meaningful conclusions. I'm going to be making a little bit of a review on them, starting with some thoughts today in this massive edition of Strade Bianche, which was massively affected by the heat. And the results, despite not very surprising, they were really exciting. There was a big balance between the riders that were in front. It took a big amount of damage for them to fall. They went one by one. It was in Monte Santa Maria that the main differences were made. An attack by Jakob Fuglsang triggered it all beforehand. We weren't able to see what really happened in the broadcast because, well, there wasn't a broadcast yet. We know that Julian Alaphilippe crashed, I believe Vincenzo Nibali as well, and Mathieu van der Poel punctured. So there were lots of occurrences there in those first sectors of the race that really blew apart when uh, before the broadcast started. So that was a bit of a disappointment, but we got most of the show nonetheless. Fuglsang was there in front attacking, and he looked very sharp with 50 kilometers to go. However, he really faded in the end. The heat took a big toll on plenty of riders. I won't mention some obvious names like Sagan, Nibali. I'm not exactly sure what the situation was with Nibali. I haven't yet read any report. However, plenty of riders really suffered with the heat. They completely cracked, which is something that was honestly to be expected, and those that wouldn't crack, wouldn't suffer with the heat, would obviously fare very well today. There weren't big surprises in the top 5, with Wout van Aert, David Formolo, and Max Skakman making a very well-rounded and strong podium. Jakob Fuglsang cracked there a little in the end, as did Greg Van Avermaet in one of the previous sectors, as did Kwiatkowski in another one of the sectors. They pretty much just went one by one as soon as the decisive attacks were made in Monte Santa Maria. And, you know, this was a great race. Van Aert was the strongest. I was really surprised that he was able to make that decisive move on Lotolf as a 78 kilogram rider. I really wasn't expecting him to make damage on the uphill, but it was clearly visible that he was handling the heat much better than his competitors, because on Monte Santa Maria he was struggling. He visibly looked struggling, as well as Skakman was, but they were able to fare with the next 40 kilometers better than their rivals. And that endurance that Van Aert has really came on his deck. He really managed to make the best out of it, and with that engine, that big powerful rider characteristics that resemble Cancellara very well, he was able to make that gap on Lotolf, and he couldn't be caught afterwards. He time trialed all the way into the finish. Formolo and Skakman are two very powerful riders that can climb very well, but it was just too much of a force to really chase back. Alberto Bettiol finished 4th. It was a nice surprise, however, not really a surprise, because the quality is imminent in there. The man won Flanders last year solo, very classy. We got Zdenek Stybar finishing 6th, which is a nice result, somewhat saving the Cunnings race, although they had some large disappointments. Alaphilippe crashed, but I had no news on Bob Jungels, on Casper Asgreen, Davide Ballerini, and Peter Serri. Also, very strong riders that I was able to. I was expecting to see something out of them, but it really wasn't their day. We had Greg Van Avermaet finish 8th, and Michael Kwiatkowski finished 12th. Mathieu van der Poel, despite the early puncture and being left behind, still managed to finish 15th, so it wasn't a disaster. And we had Peter Sagan, if I'm not mistaken, finishing 24th as well, so, or perhaps that was Alaphilippe. So the big riders still managed to finish the race, collecting some UCI points, you know, honoring their sponsors. They did well. Coming through, the big surprises were indeed Brent Bookwalter. It's the only real surprise that I see here in the whole top 20. I must admit that in the beginning of the year or last year, I don't know exactly when he was hired by Mitchelton Scott. When that happened, I was really surprised because I didn't see Bookwalter as a rider that could still perform at the highest level. You know, he could be there, but not to race on his own, not to lead a team. And it was a massive surprise to see him finish seventh here. He didn't seem to suffer with the heat. He did a brilliant performance, netting 95 UCI points. So those are really going to be valuable once he's out of contract and any team is going to want to negotiate on having him in the team. We have Michael Gogol also with a very strong race finishing ninth, and Arkea's Diego Rosa, which was one of my outsiders to mention in the preview, finished 10th, also a very good surprise. Outside of that, you know, the gaps were absolutely huge. Rosa finished 10th, finished 7:45 away from Wout van Aert. The gaps were massive as they were in the women's race. So as we can conclude, this was a Saturday of big show. We had the first stage of the Route de l'Occitanie, Occitane, L'Occitane, where Brian Coquard took the first stage, and we also have the final victory of the Vuelta a Burgos, a stage win by Ivan Souza. The general standings were won by Remco Evenepoel, which I'll mention in the coming video. As for the Strade Bianche, it was a great edition. I hope to see more of this riding in the next coming months, as this edition was really promising as to the kind of cycling that we're going to see in the next few months, COVID allowing. And it was a race that I greatly enjoyed, and I hope you did as well. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe as well if you want to keep up to date with some of the material that I'm going to put out soon. I hope to put out some very good stuff tomorrow already, so keep your eye out, and I'll see you in the next one.